Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the second installment of our Sage 100 year-end webinar series. This is processing year-end forms, W-2s, 1099s, and Affordable Care Act forms. Thanks for joining us. Same team today as we had last week. I'll be leading the session. My name is Alec Burke. I've been with Sage about 16 years. And in the background, we have Linda Raby handling Q&A. And Linda's been with Sage about twice that long. So lots of experience, just like last time. And just like last session, we are going to aim to have a question or a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please go ahead and post your questions in the Q&A section of the screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. You should have an option for Q&A at the top, and it should load the question thread or screen to the right. I want to highlight our year-end center again. I'm going to just pull it up on my screen here. This is just chock full of resources. It's updated and refreshed every year. Our team and Linda put a lot of work into this, and it really is a lot of great resources for you. A simple Google search of Sage 100 Year-End Center should pull it right up. You've got some FAQs at the top left, links to learning and training, our Sage University down the bottom left, some checklists to help things move smoothly through the processes. And critically, you've got updates down at the bottom. Of course, we've got a few that are coming out right now. And on the right side, I want to highlight the Sage 100 resources link. I'm going to open that up. This is one easy way to get access to the knowledge base here. I'm actually going to be using that screen for today's session. Here are the articles for today's session that I'll be highlighting. Thank you to Melissa Wilson for building in some hyperlinks to these. So if you're using the slide deck, you can just click on the article link and it should take you right to it. I do want to highlight this brand new FAQ. And this is something, again, that was internal and has really just been a common list of questions year in, year out, and now it's available to you on the public knowledge base as well. It's designed to have you, click on the question, give you quick wins, quick answers to exactly what you're looking for. So please keep that in mind and take a look when you have a chance. Obviously, there's a lot of possible scenarios when we're dealing with all these different forms, talking about numbers, reconciling. This session is going to be kind of greatest hits and general information that hopefully you'll find useful and should apply to a lot of people. So we're going to go through how to install the Aatrix Tax Reporting add-on, common issues there, how to update the forms. We'll take a quick look again at how to edit the employee wage and tax history. It's a really powerful tool. It's built right into the employee maintenance window. We did look at that last time, but it's worth another mention. We'll walk through running W-2s, W-3s, how to access the archive there, common issues, and of course, how to run the forms. Running Affordable Care Act forms, how to set that up because it has its own setup, common issues, how to run those forms, and then we'll wrap up with running 1099s, 96s, how to check the vendor settings, enter history, run the forms, and access that separate archive. I kept this slide in here just to reiterate that there are a number of different updates. Which ones will apply to you for your specific forms and processing, whatever you're going to be working through. That'll all be detailed in the frequently asked questions article I just had up on the screen. So the IRD, I think, has been posted today. We've got the latest releases for the payroll as well. and the Aatrix Forms update has been pushed out. So, jumping right in, we're going to start by taking a look at how to install the Aatrix Tax Reporting add-on. My apologies again, I'm still kind of fighting this cold, so I may have to mute myself once or twice as we go through. Since we partner with Aatrix as our forms processor, we have to install their add-on software, which is what we use to process the forms, whether printing or e-filing. So I'll walk you through how to get that installer started, as the auto installer that our engineers built in is often blocked by Windows or network security. The installers actually run from the same one you use to install the Sage 100 workstation. And if you don't know where that is, you can check right in your Sage 100 install. With the program open, you go up to the File menu at the top left, down to Run. Type in *info. I have it here in the memory as I've already used it. And go ahead and push OK. So this will give you the system information window, including the path to your Sage 100 server install, wherever that main server portion of the program install is found. If you have the word home in the path, you can ignore that. We want to just highlight it up to the MAS 90. Right click and copy. And then you go ahead and open up a Network Explorer window and just paste it in there. Scroll down. You're looking for the WK setup folder. Double click that. And then you're going to be right click and run as administrator on the auto run installer. That'll present the options for installation, and you'll want to choose the install federal and state tax reporting. For some reason, that screen just won't move over from my other window. So just have to follow the instructions. Right click, run as administrator, and then once that window opens up, click on install federal and state tax reporting. I already have it installed, so we're not going to go through the full steps there. Once the add-on is installed, the forms will, of course, need to be updated. The automatic forms update is prompted after selecting any form to run and then pushing the proceed button on the federal and state tax reporting window. As we reviewed in the last webinar, the automatic forms update may fail for a number of reasons that are usually rooted in network security. The add-on runs its own forms and program updates from Aatrix directly and has its own requirements. I will highlight again an article from the last webinar which details the requirements for the automatic forms update, if you want them, of course, to run without issue. That is the unable to install Aatrix federal and state tax reporting. Let's pull that up here. So this is all information direct from the horse's mouth, direct from Aatrix, to ensure that their program can run their automatic updater without issue. So there's a lot of information here that you would want to pass on to your IT, specific stuff that's just for this updater to run correctly. And it's the same forms and program update as the automatic one. Of course, as the workaround, you can always install the forms update, the program and forms update for the Aatrix tax reporting add-on. You can do that manually from their website. That's aatrix.com. Up to Solutions menu, find my solution, scroll down to Sage Solutions. Of course, we want Sage 100. And then on the new site that loads, you scroll all the way down to the bottom. and it's the button for stage 100. Now, the actual file name is still marked as mass 90, which is the old name of stage 100. But again, you just right click and run that as administrator once it's downloaded, and that'll install all the latest forms and adjustments. Okay, so by the time you're running W-2s, you should have had all payroll postings done for the year. As we looked at last week, it's possible to make additional corrections to employee wage and tax history right in the employee maintenance window. That's the article I highlighted last time, how to edit employee wage and tax history in tax summary. Put that up as well, just really quick. And it walks you through with nice little screenshots and everything. I'm going to give just a really quick walkthrough again, as this is a really important function. And as I said last time, you have to use your own logic and be careful with these edits. So it would help if I'm in the right company. We'll just look at one of our demo data people. So top right, more button, tax summary. It's going to tabulate all the different groups and categories of wages. This person doesn't have any current wages. We'll just look at last year. More button in the top right again, and then detail. You'll get a summary by month. You want to drill down again, and this is where you'll get the full wage history for every single payment and reversal. Always make sure to unhide the capped wages. Make your edits very carefully. It should have reason. It should be logical. It should be reporting what actually happened during the year. Of course, edits can be made to employee tax, employer tax, wages, what have you. So this will not update to the general ledger. If you do need to make corrections here that need to be matched up with general ledger corrections, you'll have to make those GL entries yourself. So let's take a look at how to actually run the forms. First off, always run forms from your live company and not a copy company, because the forms archive lives in the company where it was originally processed. And you want all these records together in the same place. You don't want to be hunting around to different copy companies. That's old hat. You're certainly welcome to make a copy company as a backup at the end of the year if you want to. It's no longer required, and you definitely want to run all your forms from the live company. You'll want to have your company federal and state ID numbers set up in company maintenance as well. That's library master, main, company maintenance. And on the additional tab here, we've got fields for contact information as well as tax reporting federal and state ID numbers. It's ideal to just fill this in here so it can populate automatically and pull into the other screens and the Aatrix Forms processor without you having to re-enter it there. And as I mentioned, Aatrix has just released, I believe yesterday, the 2024 W-2 forms. So once you run the forms update, you should see it in your install as well. I may say this multiple times, please run the automatic forms update whenever prompted. There may be multiple form file corrections at this time of year. If there's something that's not quite working right, or there's a last minute change, from an agency the government is sending out or what have you, that's how those corrections are going to come through and get downloaded to your install. So anytime there's that automatic forms update prompt, please run it. I don't believe there will be one for me as I've just run it. So of course, this is payroll, period end, federal and state tax reporting. We want to select the form from the lookup list, as I've done. And I'm just going to select my range of test employees. So for your purposes, obviously you'll want to select your entire range of employees on file, and there is a specific reason that you need to exclude somebody, like if you accidentally set up a duplicate employee record or something like that, and you just need to exclude that. That example would be a good one for another reason why you might need to use the editing wage and tax history that I just walked through in employee maintenance, so that you can move all those numbers from the duplicate employee to the correct employee. So it will process for a minute and then open up to your company setup wizard. The tax reporting processor comes with an optional test drive mode, but you can also go with the live option and just close out without saving when you're done testing, if that is your goal. It's going to move through a number of different windows. Of course, you want to just confirm that this is pulling in correctly as your company ID number. The multiple data files window, this option is for companies that process payroll and separate companies in Sage 100 that are actually one legal entity and must report in a single W-2 filing. It's defaulting to yes, but we're going to go with no. There's no easy way to just back out if I choose yes, so I'm not going to move forward with that example. But if I did choose yes and click next, the next window will give you a number of buttons. What you'll want to do is run the W-2 forms processor from each company you want to combine. You use the Save button on the next window. It'll save a file inside the install. And then finally, you go back and you use the Merge button in the final company you're actually filing from in order to select all files to combine, and then continue with the W-2, W-3 forms printing or e-filing in that final company. We get calls every year, just a few, but most people are going to be using just a single data file. Here is the company information that we just had up in the Library Master company maintenance area. Again, it's much nicer if you can just have a pull in for you instead of having to fill this out each time. Continuing on, you will need to select whether you're filing for your own company, employer, or on behalf of another company. And then next up, we'll have the state tax items window. This window will display tax items that the forms processor, quote, sees in your data. Valid tax account numbers must be entered for all items present in the window. This will be the account number for your business with the tax agency for that particular tax. Of course, I'm just going to fill this in with a bunch of numbers. And I have test employees with Oregon and Washington history. That's why these items are coming up. Next window will be the same, but for local assorted tax items. None of these items in my example require reporting on the W-2, and that's what this window is going to tell me. You'll need to answer whether you have any employees that are exempt from any part of Medicare or Social Security. You'll need to know that. Whether you have any employees who are clergy members and options for control numbers or employee elective electronic delivery requirement. I'm going to say no here. This is a really critical question, and we get calls on that each year because the error trapping and the error checking in the forms processor, the W-2 processor downstream, are going to depend on this. So if you have employees, just even one, who are exempt from any part of either of those, you need to choose yes here. W3 information options are the following window. You will need to select a kind of payer option at minimum. The majority of users will be 941 payers. I'll go ahead with that option. And then next are employee social security number truncation options. This is mostly about security, and I certainly prefer it when my employer doesn't show my entire social security number on the paper copy I get mailed to me. I know what my social is. It does take a couple of minutes. It is doing a large data query, building tables. And then it will load the actual forms processor preparer. Moving forward from here, the big takeaway is that the green Next button should be used to move through each step of the process. The forms preparer will always pop up and prompt you to print the official copy for filing. Any print a copy or print final button will be a copy for your own records only. It's not for official filing. This is a really common call we get every year. When we get a little bit further into the forms processor, we'll see a print final button. It can definitely be confusing. Again, that one is for your records only. Green next arrow is always the way to go. If you do need to get back into the company information wizard we just left, you can use the company setup button here at the top, or edit and then company setup. So click next through each step of verifying the employee information. The forms preparer that Aatrix has built is very thorough. It'll warn for any errors that will cause rejection of the forms, like a missing or invalid social security number. You can't have a social with all zeros in one segment. So when you get an error window like this, if you have an option to continue without correcting, there will be a button for that right here. Most of these errors are going to be deal breakers, so you have to go back and correct. Just adjust that. And then next step. You can see it's moving through the progress bar as it's verifying, shifting the information over, expecting the user to verify that information. You can see on the right side that my box 12D for my 401k plan has populated automatically. So there's a reason for that. And of course, it's in your settings. So payroll, setup, deduction code maintenance. Pull up our 401k deduction. And here are the options. Apply to box or apply to W2 box. We want 12, and then the box code. So you'll need to set this for any deductions that you want to filter to box 12 or box 14 automatically. The preparer does allow you to right-click and insert a column, but you don't want to have to do any manual work if you can avoid it. Ideally, you want the settings to just flow and pull the data for you. Of course, just a final warning, make sure you've double checked everything. And this is essentially an add window. Aatrix offers a complete e-filing package, printing of all forms or a mix of both. They really, I can't say enough nice things about Aatrix. They have been an excellent partner over the years. They are on top of what they need to handle. If anything ever goes wrong, they are on it super fast. And their e-filing package really is a good one. But if you want to go ahead and print your forms yourself, that is totally fine and free. At this point, I want to highlight another article we have. It's an old one, but it's a good one. It's what forms do I use to print W-2s, 1095s, and 1099s in Sage 100? I'll pull it up. It's a very thorough article. It lists all the forms and any you might need to order with the special red ink pre-printed forms to print on. And I mention that specifically because you don't need to do that anymore. Another common question, please don't order those forms ahead of time. You can't use them. Sage 100 includes print and sign tax forms functionality. They are specifically approved to allow you to print onto plain paper. The only thing you might need to order are the perforated 4-part plain paper sheets. So those are usually going to be the ones for government filing, or rather, I'm sorry, the employee copies, but you don't need to order the red ink forms any longer. This window is really important to review carefully. We get a lot of calls every year. If you don't want to do the complete W-2 e-filing package, that's totally fine. You can switch down here to other options, but watch what happens when I select to print employee W-2s. You can see that some of these e-file options default automatically. If you don't want to e-file, you really need to pay attention to what you're doing in this window. You need to select all the print options to cover everything. It can be frustrating. You get to the end of your processing, you've gone all the way through to printing, and then several versions of the forms you're expecting aren't printing out. Well, you have to go all the way back here, not quite to the beginning, but it's another common call that we get. Another add window, essentially, a warning about Oregon employers must submit electronically. We're just going to kind of scroll through these quickly, and then you get a quick snapshot of the forms that you've elected to print or e-file. So here's another chance for you to verify. And here's our first copy. Copy 1, you can see in tiny print there, copy 1, Form W-2 for state, city, or local tax department. So click Print Final, then click Next Step. Well, again, it's a little misleading. Print Final is your copy. If you want the official filing, next step, it prompts you. It'll always prompt you. Yes, we want to go ahead and print that. Please insert your 4-part perforated W-2 paper. And we'll just print a PDF. See, obviously, I've done this a few times. And it'll move through the forms. Now loading report 2 of 6, employee W-2. Do the same here. Prompts you to load the paper. Here is our report 3. It is the form W-2 copy D, I believe. This is the for employer. And this is the W-2 copy A for Social Security Administration. Again, next step, prompts you to print. Insert plain paper. These ones are just regular printer paper. Finally, we've got the 941 federal W-3. Next step again, print. Now I'm of course printing to PDF just for demonstration, ease of run through. You would be printing obviously to paper, your actual printer. The archive will keep copies if you need to reprint. So you don't need to be printing to PDF. This is our last form, notice to employees. Yes, here as well. And that is a complete session. So once the forms printing is complete, you now have a completed archived record of the run through. This is another common mistake that people make, not using the next button to go all the way through printing the final employee notice. If you do not, there is no completed session and no archive of that. So really important, you need to go all the way through printing everything, using that next step, following the pop-up prompts. This is the archive window. This is what you would see if you went through the federal and state tax reporting. Can't open to, of course. If you went through the federal and state tax reporting window and access the archive by using the existing reports option in the drop down at the top left, and you can correct completed W-2s if you haven't, or rather if they have been issued and they have mistakes on them. You can pick back up and finish an incomplete session. You can reprint completed W-2s, or you can start over if you can tell the program that you haven't actually distributed any copies. Okay, so next up, everybody's favorite, Affordable Care Act forms. To start, the settings for the Affordable Care Act forms must be set up each year. There is no option to copy from one year to the next. And the regular payroll processing just doesn't have the information required for the ACA forms. That's another common question. You're processing, health insurance deductions for your plans. The information for the ACA forms, it's more than just that. So the first step is setting up each employee in the ACA employee maintenance window. And of course, as I mentioned, there's a dedicated ACA section on the year-end center. We'll go through these really quick here, setting up employee settings, running the applicable large employer report, updating it, and then confirming employer setup. That is payroll, Affordable Care Act or ACA, and ACA employee maintenance. You'll make sure that you have the correct year selected, and then you're going to use your lookup and select from your same master list of employees. Of course, I've set up some examples here for my W-2 people. Another common question is regarding the box for self-insured coverage. What does that even mean? Isn't it all self-insured? No. Basically, a good example is Sage itself. Sage has its own bank account. Employee health insurance premium deductions get deposited into that account. When there's a payout, it's deducted from that account as well. We have someone managing the bank account, but most smaller companies have a health plan management company that handles all of that for them, and the bank account is, belongs to the health plan management company. If your company is self-insured, then you need to check this box. And when you do, you can see the covered individuals box, or rather button, will become available. And that's for you to enter covered individuals other than the employee themselves. This is family members, spouse, children, whatever. If you're not self-insured, there's no reporting requirement for that, and you leave that box unchecked. Monthly detail button and window must be filled out for each employee to be reporting on. This is required, and that includes the offer of coverage, employee share of lowest cost, and any applicable safe harbor code. You'll need to make the appropriate selections from the options given by the government. These are just codes that we built in that mirror the government options. Once this is done, you can push accept and close out the window. The next step is to run the applicable large employer report, which will use the government's three-step formula to determine the full-time equivalent or FTE employee count for each month. I'm going to go ahead and run that. Again, payroll, ACA applicable large employer report. There's your standard warning. We built a report to do the calculation for you. It's kind of a hairy one. Check your numbers. You can see it'll default to the current year and the entire year, right? I'm going to go ahead and push preview. Now, this is just my basic testing data, so that's why I only have some hours for October. But you'll see numbers calculated across the entire year, or at least you should for, periods that you are in operation. I want to highlight it's not a simple average of employees employed per month. We get this call every year as well. It's not just a regular average, nothing simple with government tax forms ever. It's a multi-step full-time equivalent calculation. When you close the report, you'll get the prompt to update it. I'll say yes here. And then we're going to go into that window. That's the payroll, ACA employer maintenance. And then, of course, select the calendar year. You'll click the monthly detail button at the top right and verify that your numbers pulled in accurately. Here's my full-time equivalent employees, or rather, they didn't make the full-time cut. They're just total count. And I want to highlight another common issue we see with this window. For whatever reason, the form type dropdown sometimes has a hard time saving the right form. They are either B or C forms. So if you have set up everything as I've demonstrated so far, but you're finding that no employees are populating the form, come back into this window, change the setting for the form type to use to the other option, the one you don't actually want, push accept, come back in, select the year, switch back to the one you do actually want and push accept again. Basically, you're resaving the record, resaving the setting for the correct form type to use, which allows the data to be aligned with and then transfer to the correct ACA form. Again, another common call we get. And then finally, you'll be able to actually run the forms themselves. So payroll, period end, federal and state tax reporting. Of course, we're going to stick with federal. Again, here's your existing reports dropdown. This is how you access the archive. If you want to get back in that W-2 archive window we had open a minute ago, you choose existing reports and proceed. But this time we're going to go with federal. Use the form lookup. We're going to select the 1095-94C. And I'm just going to select my test employees. Again, you'd be using your entire list of employees and proceed. Does again take a minute or two to load. It's doing a lot of number crunching, data query from Sage 100 data tables to the tax reporting preparer. And then we'll get the company information wizard open up, just like we had for the W-2. So you'll answer the questions just like you would in the other wizards. Watch out that this seems to be defaulting now to yes, but most people are going to be using no. Again, unless you need to combine multiple Sage 100 data files into a single filing. It'll pull all your contact information, filing for your company employer, truncation options, And it really likes my right screen for some reason. Here is the actual form preparer. So once this actual form processor loads, you'll need to answer several other questions, like, does the employer provide self-insured coverage? We don't. Or for our example, we don't. Confirm that this is the authoritative transmittal, or transmittal. You have to choose yes to this. If you choose no, you can't go any further because you're telling it that you don't, have the authorization to run an actual form. Are all employees included for the EIN/ALE member? Yes. Are you required to submit a state ACA submission? No. You will need to know the answer to this and choose accordingly. And then finally, is the employer a member of an aggregated ALE group, aggregated applicable large employer group? Oops. But that's a good example how you can use links here to help you navigate with these terms. What this means, though, really is if you are running several businesses that are considered legally connected and must be filed with references to each other, you mark yes here, and then you click the other ALE members button, and then you just notate the details of the companies that are the other companies in the aggregate group. With these forms, if you are an aggregate group, you don't have to combine the filings into one filing, but you do have to notate the other companies in the group. The government will collate them when you have filed. So this is a no for us. I'm just going to go ahead and mark all year. Our full-time count was 4. So we can move through the processor. You should see your numbers populate here directly from the ACA employer maintenance employee counts that we just looked at, which themselves come from the applicable large employer report calculation. I've just got limited data for the testing. That's why I have just the 4. But you should see these counts of full-time and full-time equivalents should be populating and pulling over from your ACA employer setup maintenance window. If you don't, go back and do the form switch around trick that I just highlighted a minute ago, where you switch the form to the other one, push accept, go back in, switch it back, push accept again, and then start a fresh session for the ACA processing. So you'll need to confirm that monthly breakdown details on the right. Again, next button will move you through the forms processor and the data checking, just like we saw with the W-2 process. Errors will be highlighted in red for correction, like my invalid social security number. Go ahead and just correct that one as well. If you have selected the self-insured coverage option in the employer maintenance setup and entered other covered individuals, they'll populate on the covered individuals tab as well as the main employee on the tabs at the bottom of the screen here. Continue clicking next button to work through the rest of the data verification steps. And any other rejection alerts, read carefully. We're going to go ahead and just click OK. So the program, the Aatrix Forms Processor program, will take care of that for us. They offer a full e-filing option for these forms as well. And then here's a similar screen as we saw with the W-2. Please read these options carefully. You can see again when we select other options and print, some of these e-file options may automatically select for you. We won't go through the entire process of printing all the ACA forms as we're limited on time. But essentially, the process is very much the same as with the W-2s. Click next, green arrow button, follow the prompts, put the paper into the printer, etc. Make sure that you click next, green arrow, next button all the way through until the forms processor completes and closes on its own. Otherwise, that's not a full completed session and it won't build into the archive. And here's an example. You can always save your work in progress as well. If you are halfway done, you want to come back next time. I'm going to say no here. And that brings us around to 1099s. So with 1099s, you will almost always have specific updates that you'll want to have installed. There are changes almost every year for the 1099s. Sometimes we like to build in changes that we know are coming for next year. So one example is the way that the name is broken into several different fields. If you're filing as an individual, we'll look at that in a minute. But you will want to install the IRD update, the interim release download that should be posted now out on our download portal. So install your recommended updates, review settings for applicable vendors, and edit 1099 history amounts if needed. 1099s are actually run from a separate menu in Accounts Payable, Reports, Form 1099 Tax Reporting. It's the same Aatrix Tax Reporting add-on program, essentially, though. So we'll take a look at that as well. We'll switch over to the ABC demo data for this. So step one, accounts payable option, or options rather. You need to make sure 1099 reporting option is turned on at all. So that's right on the main tab on the right side. And you need to ensure that the correct 1099 reporting year is set as well. Increment the year to the correct one if needed. And if you get a prompt about setting up the current year 1099 boxes based off the prior year, I want to click yes to that. All my boxes and all my settings are set up already, so I can't trigger that message for you. But especially with recent changes and the reintroduction of the NEC version of the form, all that background data bucket building is triggered by the answer you give to that. So if you get that prompt to set up the current year 1099 boxes based off the prior year, make sure you click yes. We'll look at airway property vendor and accounts payable vendor maintenance as an example. Once you've selected the vendor, you go to the additional tab. Ideally, you want your vendor settings, vendor default settings in place throughout the year so that the invoice amounts automatically tabulate into the correct reporting fields. This vendor is set as an individual type and the non-employee compensation form that I just mentioned. So that's why they have a social security number field showing here, as well as fields for the first, middle, and last names of the person. We can click on the 1099 history button at the bottom right to confirm or edit any of the 1099 amounts for this vendor. If you don't have your vendor default settings in place during the year, you can simply come in here at the end of the year and come into this 1099 history. Make sure these settings are set ideally before you do that, because you need to have these set for the form, the correct vendors to pull into the processor either way. But you can come into 1099 history and simply edit those amounts for the correct year-to-date total. Our next vendor example is the all climate maintenance. And we can see they're set as a business type with the default form miscellaneous. So that's why they have a taxpayer ID number field showing up, because they are reported classified as a business. Again, we can come down to the 1099 history button and confirm or edit any of these amounts. To actually run the 1099 forms, you'll just go to the accounts payable reports and form 1099 tax reporting. This is also how you access the archive. So new versus history. New is obviously new forms processing. History is your archive. You want to select the form type to run. In this case, of course, new. And the form type here is going to be non-employee compensation. And we will select our airway example, push accept. Again, it's going to take a minute to do such a large data query from the Sage 100 tables to the tax preparer, and it will load in just a minute. So you're going to be working through another company setup wizard here specific to the 1099 forms and information. We're going to go ahead and just kind of quickly go through this. You need to answer all of this carefully. Doesn't like the period in here. Whether you use a transfer agent, etc. And you get basically the same look and feel for, as we saw with the W-2 and the ACA forms processor. You are going to be using the green next button to work through the data validation process, confirm your form printing versus e-filing options, and then move on to print the forms as prompted by the pop-up windows, just like we saw when I ran through the W-2, W-3 form preparer. So we're not going to go through the entire session here either. We're closing out on time. But again, green next step button, it's your friend. If you need to get back into the company setup information, there's a button for that, or you can always go to edit and company setup if you realize you answered one of those questions in the wizard incorrectly. When you are finished, you will get this pop-up prompt. Do you want to increment the default calendar year to the next calendar year? I haven't actually processed my forms. I'm going to say no. But once you are done processing your forms, you printed everything, it's all filed, it's good to go. You're going to click yes here. And that brings us to our Q&A portion of the webinar. We have a few minutes left. I'm sure there are a lot of specific scenarios that you might want to get into. We only have a few minutes. I do want to invite everyone to please use our knowledge, use the support plans you are paying for. Reach out to us using our chat option for quick and easy things, or you can submit a case online. We do try to get those assigned out to analysts within 24 hours. And as always, we can be reached for phone support at 800-854-3415. That's some of the information here. But let's open it up for questions. Do we have any questions, good questions for the form processing? Let's take a look. Linda, do we have any questions? I can't get my Q&A to load here. It's just thinking.
Alec, I don't think there's any questions I haven't answered. Some of them were a little
Fantastic.
wordy, so you might want to call support for additional clarity on them.
Yep.
And I just posted something. The Aatrix e-filing deadlines have just been posted.
Excellent.
I don't know if you can get to that link I posted or not, but if you're e-filing, be aware of those because they are a little earlier than the government deadlines. They need
Let's
time
see
to
if I can
process.
put that up here.
What do you need? What are you looking for, Alec? Oh,
This
deadline.
is what Linda's talking
There you
about.
go.
Yeah. So, and they often will get up right up close to the deadline, and they may extend it 1 or 2 days. Don't count on that. Try to get things done in a timely way. And then if there are any hiccups, you'll have time to deal with that. But Aatrix, if you are using the e-filing, they have their submission deadlines. That's what Linda's talking about, and that can be found on the aatrix.com website that I just opened up here. Support dropdown and e-filing deadlines. And like I said, please, not everyone's aware of it. You can submit cases online. If it's not, if you can give it a day or two for us to get back to you, that's an excellent resource. Our chat support is ideally for quicker and easier things. It's difficult to get into the nitty-gritty specifics and all of that on a chat. But our phone support is available 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday to Friday. That's 800-854-3415. And I think that's probably it for today then.
I just want to say if it's payroll or W-2 related, 1099 related, those are all high priority. So let us know what your urgency is, and we'll try and make those expectations for you.
Exactly. Thank you for adding that in. Just like if you're having a problem, you can't get your people paid, that's always going to be a priority one issue for us, and we will handle that as the utmost urgency. So that's always something you want to phone in for. Don't jump into chat or submit an online case for something urgent like that. And a big thank you for everyone who's joined us this week and last week. It was really a great opportunity to share some of this information out, and we certainly plan on having another round of these next year. So please join us again next year.
Thank you. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.